this is the part where I think that if I just fly through these, you're going to be, well, that makes complete sense as to why they would recommend this, right? So what students should be doing, that content should be delivered through process thinking skills. Right, as early as possible, and that has been fairly recent in the reports. That's something that you're seeing more and more. So that means when they walk in the door. So at Curry, CCURI, that's our philosophy, is that they're doing it from the very first time they walk in. Interdisciplinary, and they specifically mention math, right? So that we should be not just doing these in our little silos, but having as many disciplines involved as possible. I have a project right now going on that involves the statistics professor, our engineering group, chemistry class, and my research methods and biology course. And it's a very enriching experience. It takes a lot of work, but so how we deliver content, right? These inquiry-based methods that everybody uses, people are all familiar with these, in a collaborative setting, and then with multiple levels of mentorship. And for mentorship, we go beyond just the faculty to the student and talk about how do you get their families involved in the undergraduate research experience, right? Their community, their church. I mean, we've had people come to poster sessions that represent the students, not just their educational community, but their actual community, which is very important for them. All right, so let me tell you where we started. And I do this for all of our partners as well, because what happens is, you go to these conferences and they very rarely pick somebody to come up and talk to you if the person has some really small thing that they did that failed, right? It's always somebody that's done some really amazing, huge thing that's awesome. And we sit back and go, oh, I don't think I could ever do that, right? So for our partners, I have to be careful to not show them the big, big, big awesome thing, but to say, here's where it can start. And it started for me many years ago when I was just starting at Finger Lakes Community College, and I'm walking down the hall, and a woman who's in the environmental science department is walking past me. She stops me, she says, Jim, I gotta ask you a question. Can you tell the sex of a red-tailed hawk from a blood sample? And I said, well, I made a joke about, can't you just turn them over and look, and I think if I recall, right? Turns out in the juvenile phase, the eastern red-tailed hawk, there's no sexual dimorphism. Males and females look exactly the same. Now that's a problem for the people who do research on these birds and who track them and put bans on them and release them as part of management, because when they get to the column about the sex, they have to just leave it blank. And so I thought, well, let's see if we can figure this out. I have a biotech program, we got all the equipment and instrumentation. I grabbed 2 biotech students, and I said, come on, let's go work on this together. For no credit, for no money, right? With limited space and limited time, and we did it, right? We just started working on it. And it was amazing. These students were going back into their classrooms, and the faculty were coming to me and saying, what have you done to these 2 people? Because they are completely re-energized and want to just do, and they were knocking on my door, can we get in the lab, can we get in the lab? And I spent about 6 months on that with these 2 students, and it was up to that moment, it was the greatest thing that I did. And I said, we have got to do this for everybody. Everybody. Not just a class of 10 people. I'm talking about everyone, right? That was my goal. So what do? Make a class, right? Research methods in biology. And I'm so excited. I'm getting up to the fall semester and I see it on the books. I'm getting all ready, and then registration opens and I'm at my computer watching the numbers. Nothing, 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 0, 0. The dean starts coming up to me and saying, hey, we gotta get those numbers up or that class might not go, right? And then one day, all of a sudden it was like, click, click, 2 students. The same 2. I called up the roster, I was like, doggone, it's the same 2 kids, right? So it didn't run. And I thought, well, how else are we gonna do this, right? I couldn't figure this out. So I tried all different types of things, and I failed on every single time I tried. I tried putting it into our general bio course. That didn't work. So we got pushed back from the faculty, and we had a whole bunch of adjuncts, and that was going to be a whole bunch of training that they didn't have. So I tried all these things, and we failed, and we failed, and we failed, and we failed, and we failed. And I was really getting discouraged. So I said, well, what I have to do is I have to figure this out. And so I took an approach that might seem a little odd to you. I went and got my own training on something called root cause analysis, which, to not get into a lot of detail, is essentially a suite of tools that allows you to take a problem that you're having and really get deep into what the root cause of the problem might actually be. And so I spent some time learning about how to apply these tools, and then I proposed a workshop for our faculty, our biology faculty. I said, let's just try this. If you'll just work with me. And so they did. And I facilitated it, and we applied these root cause analysis tools to our actual problem, which was we were failing at doing undergraduate research at our institution. I mean, well, I shouldn't say we. I was failing, right? So let me just give you an example. This is one of the tools called the 5 Why. And this is one of the published barriers for doing undergraduate research at the community college. This is published at the very top, that the students aren't prepared for the experience. They come to us not ready, and that's published. Now, when we applied root cause analysis to this, if you look at the bottom of this sort of flow chart, what we found is that our problem was not that the students weren't prepared. We had an advisement problem, and we had an issue with how connected we were with the high schools that we served. Now consider this, just this one thing. What would be the solution if the problem was actually at the top there? What would you do as an institution? What do we do as institutions when the students come to us and they're not prepared? Remedial coursework, right? We create a developmental course, or remedial, in other words, we try to prepare them. The solution, though, for us was very different, because the way we had to fix it had something to do with advisement and working with our high school teachers, which we did. That's what we incorporated into our model. Completely different. So if we had just gone with the published barriers and applied them to our situation, we would have tried to remediate students as part of our solution. And I'm guessing that that wouldn't work. Right? I don't know, because we didn't do that, because we had the real problem, right? We figured out what it was. Oops. All right. This is what we found. This is our problem at Finger Lakes Community College. Okay? Now, some of the stuff's going to look obvious to you, because everybody knows that, yeah, there's financial issues here. You have to have money to do undergraduate research. But when it came down to some of the other things, the second one is usually people just say there's no time. We actually found out that there is time. It's not that we don't have enough time to do undergraduate research. It's the way you're thinking about your time. You say, well, I teach 17 hours. We have to teach 17 hours, which I wouldn't be able to afford a meal for my kids if I only taught 17 hours. So I teach overloads, right? So I'm usually about 25 hours per semester. Right? Now, then you think, well, how does he have time to do undergraduate research? Because the research experience that I'm involved in has to be part of that time. The problem is we have this incompatible faculty model that we think about, right? We look at our 4-year institutions and we go, okay, so they have 9 hours in the classroom, or 4 hours, and then they do research. We have to sort of take that mentality and bring that model back to what we do. So we looked at not getting release time, because our deans don't like that word. It's a dirty word at our institution, right? It just sounds like we're giving you time off to do something. We don't like that. So we had to come up with a way to redefine our jobs. And we piloted it with some funding. And I told the institution, if it's successful, would you be willing to then institutionalize it? And I gave them the metrics that we were going to measure. And when it was successful, they said, yeah, this is a great idea, and we went forward with it. So we now have this, we have a little bit of a different faculty model when it comes to people engaged in undergraduate research, which I don't have time to get into now. It's a whole other talk, but if you're interested, I can tell you how we constructed that. The other thing you'll see down here in 2 places is networks. This is critical. This was one that made our success, or our ability to do undergraduate research, took off once we addressed the network issue. So I was at the University of Rochester studying adenoviral vectors for use in terminal cancer patients to knock out pain receptors in their spinal cord. And my network were researchers from all over the world that were working on that same problem. And I met with them regularly in conference calls, and we went to conferences together. I had a nice network. Then I went to Finger Lakes Community College. They showed me where my office was, right? They gave me the courses that I was going to teach. And I don't feel like I talked to another professional for 2 years. I felt like I was just prepping my classes and grading my and doing this thing and going to my committee work where I really wasn't talking to anybody. I was just kind of drooling, So my network dissolved around me. I felt it go away. I could just feel it go away, and it was horrible. And so what we know now from we've done with CCRI, that network creation is critical. And we can take a school that has very little undergraduate research going on at all now, and within a year we've got them up and running, and it's amazing to see. And a lot of it has to do with the networks. And then the support from administration, you have to go, oh, I don't get administrative support. Some of that has to do with doing what I'm doing right now, which is to explain to you why it's important. Really go into depth as to why it's so important that we're actually doing this undergraduate research. And so think of the 2 students working on red-tailed hawks for no money, no time, and no space, and no everything. And this is what Finger Lakes Community College looks like today. Okay, so this is just the research portfolio that's going on. I have people come up to me all the time and say, hey, I'm going to come visit your campus. Can you show me where take me to your undergraduate research program? I can't do that. It's so embedded in everything that you do that it's not in any one place, right? Which is good, because when you have financial problems at your institution, it's easier to just find something that's isolated and chop it off, right? And it would be very difficult, if almost, at this point, impossible to get rid of undergraduate research at our school. It's just what we do. It's our culture. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense.